Hey everyone, and welcome. If you're gearing up for your strategic management exams, you've come to exactly the right place. We're about to crack open Chapter 2 and make sure you have everything you actually need to walk into that exam feeling totally prepared. So here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to start with the big picture, then I'll let you in on the examiner's playbook so you know exactly what they're looking for. After that, we'll dive deep into the must-know concepts, and I'll even share some tips for writing answers that get you those top marks. We'll wrap it up with a few memory hacks and a super fast recap to make it all stick. So, you ready? Let's jump right in. Okay. First things first, before we get lost in all the definitions and frameworks, let's just ask, what is this chapter really about? Let's get a handle on the why before we dig into the what. Why does this stuff even matter? Not just for your exam, but for, any company that wants to succeed. The easiest way to think about it is this. Strategic management is a company's game plan for winning. It's the roadmap they create. It's all about making really clear, deliberate choices. Like, how are we actually going to compete? How are we going to stand out? And how are we going to make sure we're still around in 10 years? It's what turns big dreams into real-world results. Okay, so how does all this translate to your actual exam paper? Well, we've done the homework for you. We've gone through past papers to figure out what examiners love to ask about. Think of this as your secret weapon to help you study smarter, not just harder. All right, check this out. See that top line? The process or elements of strategic management? The frequency is very high. This is without a doubt the number one thing they test from this chapter. So if you're going to master one thing, make it this. It's your highest priority for sure. So now that we know what the high-scoring topics are, let's start breaking them down, step by step. We're going to demystify these core concepts so that when you see them on the exam, you can explain them with total confidence. So what's the big idea here? The key thing to get is that this isn't some one-and-done plan that you write and then forget about. No way. It's a continuous, living process. It goes from coming up with the plan, that's the formulation, to actually doing it, that's implementation, and then checking if it's working, that's evaluation. It's a complete loop that just keeps going. And this right here, this is probably the single most important framework in the whole chapter. If you get a question asking for the process or the elements, this 4-step model is your golden ticket. It's logical, it covers all the bases, and it's exactly what examiners want to see. Let's walk through each one. So, step 1, situational analysis. Think of it like this. You wouldn't start a long road trip without checking the map first, right? That's what this is. You look inside the company at what you're good at, your strengths, and what you're not so good at, your weaknesses. Then you look outside, at the world. What are the opportunities out there, and what are the threats? This is where a SWOT analysis comes in super handy. The whole point is to get a really clear, honest picture of where you are right now. Okay, so you know where you are on the map. Now it's time to decide your destination. That's strategy formulation. And we're not talking about vague goals here. We're talking specific, measurable objectives. Then you brainstorm different ways to get there and pick the best one. And a really key part of this stage is that you're making these choices on 3 different levels of the company. And this chart breaks it down perfectly. Right at the top, you've got the corporate level. This is the big picture stuff, asking what business or businesses should we even be in. Then you have the business level, which is about, okay, in this specific market, how are we going to win against our competitors? And at the bottom, you have the functional level. This is all the departments, marketing, finance, you name it, figuring out how they're going to support that business level plan. And the trick is, they all have to be in sync. All right, now for the part that's honestly the toughest. Implementation. This is where the rubber meets the road. It's where a great plan on paper has to survive in the real world. You can have the most brilliant strategy ever, but if you can't execute it, it's totally useless. This is all about organizing your teams, putting your money and people in the right places, and building a culture that's actually excited about the plan. This is the action stage. And last but not least, you need that feedback loop. Strategic control is all about asking, is this thing actually working? You're constantly monitoring your results, comparing them to the goals you set, and if you're off track, you figure out why, and you make adjustments. It's about being flexible and ready to pivot if things aren't going according to plan. All right, so you know the theory. Awesome. But that's only half the battle, right? Now let's talk about how to actually write your answers in the exam to make sure you get every single mark that you deserve. Okay, lean in for this one, because this is a super important but kind of subtle exam tip. Pay attention to whether the question asks for the process or the elements. They sound similar, but they're different. Process wants the story, the flow from one step to the next. Use words like first, next, and finally. But elements wants you to break down what's inside each step. Use words like consists of or includes. Getting this right shows the examiner you really know your stuff. Want a few easy ways to grab some extra marks? Here you go. First, always, and I mean always, start your answer with a quick, clear definition. It just sets a great first impression. Second, draw a simple diagram. A little flowchart showing the process can make your answer so much clearer and easier to mark. And finally, for those common questions on importance or characteristics, just have a few key headings memorized. That way you can hit the ground running. You know that feeling in an exam when your mind just goes blank? Yeah, we've all been there. So let's talk about a couple of simple but really effective memory hacks to lock these ideas in your brain so they're right there when you need them most. Need a simple way to remember that 4-step process we talked about? It's super simple. Just remember the letters SFIC: situational analysis, formulation, implementation, and control. The second you see a question about the process, just scribble SFIC in the margin of your paper. Boom, you've instantly got the entire structure for your answer right there. It's a total lifesaver. And here's another little pro tip to make your answer really stand out. Drop in a powerful concept or quote. For example, when you're writing about the implementation stage, saying something like, because even the best strategy is useless if it's not implemented successfully, shows a much deeper level of understanding. It shows you get the practical challenges, not just the textbook theory. Okay, we've gone through a ton of stuff. Let's boil it all down to one last super fast revision slide. This is the absolute must-know stuff to glance over right before you head into that exam hall. All right, this is it, your last-minute cheat sheet. 1. Know the definition. It's all about making decisions for the long haul. 2. Know the core process. Remember SFIC. Analyze, formulate, implement, control. 3. Know why it's important. It gives a company direction and a competitive edge. 4. Know its characteristics. It's future-focused and complex. And 5. Know the 3 levels: corporate, business, and functional. If you've got these 5 points down, you are in great shape for this chapter. And that's a wrap on our explainer for Chapter 2. As you keep studying, chew on that final question, because that's really the heart of strategic management in the real world. Thanks for joining me, and seriously, all the very best with your exams. You're going to do great.